Hello, everyone. GM. Welcome back to another episode of hopefully not overpriced JPEGs. Underpriced JPEGs. That's how I kicked off my Micah Johnson episode. Welcome to another episode of Underpriced JPEGs. It is Thursday, May 12th. The world feels a little bit like it is melting down Thursday as we were recording this. I am here with the lovely Zeneca 33 for another episode of Moment of Zeneca. I mean, look, you all know what we're going to be talking about today. We're talking about the bear market. We're talking about just a lot of negativity coming out of the space right now from market prices, Azuki, probably worth touching a little bit on the Luna Terra situation. And then also a little hope I think we can provide y'all. Maybe we'll end with some hope and on a good note. But before we get into all of that, we do still have sponsors. The world still turns, and we're going to hear from our lovely sponsors right now.
It's increasingly obvious that everything will become tokenized, and NFT marketplaces needs robust financial reporting, performance analysis, and the peace of mind that they are compliance ready. GILDED's NFT Ops is a one-stop financial reporting solution for growing NFT platforms. GILDED has developed marketplace-specific modules to track the financial performance of NFT creators, including revenue tracking, collection metrics, royalty payments, and revenue share. Customers of NFT Ops gain full access to accounting tools and powerful APIs for custom integrations that simplify operations, streamline reporting, and produce tax-ready data. So no wonder why so many top brands like CoinMarketCap, Gitcoin, Nifty's, and POAP trust GILDED to automate complex reporting workflows. Visit gilded.finance/bankless to learn more. If you're starting on your NFT journey, you need MetaMask. This is your tool to unlock the world of DeFi and NFTs without giving up custody over your private keys. MetaMask is both a secure in-browser wallet and also a secure bridge for your hardware wallet so that you can connect to any Web3-enabled website. You can now trade tokens with any DEX or aggregator. MetaMask Swap gathers real-time pricing information across the DeFi exchange ecosystem, allowing you to select your best price while getting all of the MetaMask benefits of self-custody, lower gas costs, and increased transaction success rates. MetaMask also has a fantastic mobile wallet, which I use while I'm out and about. And I use it to collect POAPs, NFTs, and use it for all my DeFi things while I'm away from home. If you haven't downloaded MetaMask, you gotta try it out. Download MetaMask for desktop and mobile at metamask.io, or load up your Ledger, Trezor, Keystone, or Lattice hardware wallets so that they too can get into Web3.
All right, man. Let's start with, I guess, how you holding up? And what has been your strategy as the events have unfolded?
I'm holding up okay. I got back from my 3-week vacation like 3 days ago, so it brought the market crash with me. The exact same thing. The exact same thing happened last year. I was away in August, September, and came back and then bear market hit. So I should maybe just never go on vacation. But anyway.
Moral of the story.
Yeah, it's been a crazy period. Yeah, for everyone. The whole crypto market is down, NFT market is down, stocks are down, just everything is getting crushed at the moment, and it's very bleak out there. A lot of doom and gloom on the streets, and I'm feeling it myself. I feel like a bit panicked and a bit scared and fearful at moments throughout the day. It's not calamitous or anything. I'm fortunate that I'm in a position that I can focus on building, creating, and I don't have to worry about getting food on the table and paying off debt or anything like that. So I focus on what I have and try and, as much as possible, stop refreshing the floor prices 40,000 times a day. How are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, I've gone through a funny mix of like kind of numbness, which Nate Alex tweeted about. And I do think there is something about the whole industry crashing at once with everybody in it that is a different kind of pain than when you feel like you alone have made a mistake. And I think it's maybe worth saying this, like, I've had some really bad moments of like in my stomach and just waking up in the middle of the night when I've made a bad, like I sold too early, or I didn't buy the thing that pumped, or I bought the thing that went down. And when you're in like a bull market and everybody's doing well and all the posts on Twitter are about people who are making money, and you can very much personalize, like, I'm an idiot, there's something wrong with me, I don't understand enough, whatever, right? Even though that's irrational, because a lot of this is it's speculative, right? Like it's not an indictment of you if you make a wrong move and you don't sell at the top. That's impossible. But there can be a very acute pain there, and I think it's been different for me. This pain of it all going down, it's like, well, it feels less personal, which I think is interesting. And I was saying this to you earlier, in times like this, you see where your convictions lie. And I'm very convicted around Ethereum, and I'm very convicted around the ecosystem and the macro picture of what we all believe in, which is a more decentralized future, which is a change, the growth of the creator economy, like a paradigm shift in a way a lot of industries work. I very much believe in, which makes me very bullish on Ethereum, because inevitably it's like getting to invest in the platform layer of the new future. And so the Ethereum price crashing, I'm okay. Like I see it as a buy opportunity. I've been dollar cost averaging into Ethereum for a year or more now, and I'm just going to continue to do so. But the NFTs make me a little nervous. We all say, we think we know that you want to hold long term, but let's be honest, we've all, entered into projects where we're sort of hoping for more of a short-term thing. And, there's a little bit of emperor has no clothes at times with projects. So I also just want to, if you're out there and you're really hurting and you're really overextended, you see it on Twitter, but you are in very good company. So many people have lost all of their wealth in crypto at various points, and they come back, and it is not the end of the world. Take a walk, hug a loved one. People come back from this all the time, right? You can come back. So, I'm aware that there are people who may be in a lot of pain, and that really breaks my heart. Yeah,
it's a sad time in the market. I think the Terra, the Luna ecosystem with UST, is probably the most calamitous and damaging part.
Yeah.
It really isn't NFT related at all. I saw an interesting tweet the other day. I can't remember who said it, but it was there's two things going on that are really awful in the space right now: the UST and Terra thing, and the Azuki thing. And there's almost no overlap in the Venn diagram. They're just two completely almost separate entities, but they've hurt a lot of people in different but significant ways. But yeah, the UST, the stable coin, quote unquote stable coin, that basically is going to zero. Yeah. Or Terra. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that, but I just want to finish on sort of your strategy here. It sounds like, I saw you post something saying that maybe you'd bought into some more art blocks projects. Is that something you've been dabbling with during this bear period?
Yeah, art blocks is still my number one most high conviction play in the entire NFT space, with Ethereum being probably the highest conviction in the Web3 space and crypto space in general. I'm not trying to buy too much, but yeah, the few purchases I've made over the last, say, 10 days, I'm pretty sure have all been art blocks, or maybe a couple of individual pieces that I bought to support a project or a person. But I'm mostly sitting on my hands. That's my strategy. I'm trying not to panic sell. I'm trying not to time the bottom either. I basically don't need more NFT exposure. And my plan, I guess, me personally, my plan has always been to hold most things long term, because specifically in Germany, where I live and a tax resident, the difference between long term capital gains tax is it's 0% if you hold for 12 months or more, versus almost 50% if you sell within that 12-month period. So it just makes almost no sense, and it has led me to be not overextended, but my portfolio allocation is far more skewed to the NFT speculative side than I would otherwise like. And my plan has been to, as that year benchmark or milestone hits, start to sell off pieces bit by bit. Unfortunately, this massive crash happened sort of before I got to start selling anything significantly, but who knows, maybe it'll come back, maybe not. But I stand by my logic and reasoning, and I'm just happy to hold. And I'm fortunate that the majority of my portfolio is in projects that I have high conviction on. So Apes, Doodles, Art Blocks is still, I'm sure, my number one bag, even though it's down 90%. And then, yeah, with a lot of the other projects that are maybe less established and the floor prices are a lot lower, it's, again, I'll wait if there's a pump again in the future. We've seen projects come back. We saw October, November, December last year was a really bearish time in the market, specifically the NFT market, and then January hit and all these projects that had almost died just powered back, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that again. I also wouldn't be surprised if I'm sure that a lot of them are going to fizzle out and they won't bounce back. So don't, hold your bags to the grave expecting them to. But for me personally, I can afford to take a bit of a risk, and then if they bounce back, maybe sell into volume.
Yeah. I would say, the projects that I'm, less convicted about, I didn't put enough money in for it to be worth me taking the pittance that they're maybe worth now out. You know what I mean? I'd rather just hold and see what happens in the long term. And then there's a number of projects that, I have some conviction with.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was going to say, for me, it's like there's a lot of projects that like the floor price is under 0.1, and it's like almost not worth it for me to list and sell. If you add it up, it's a good amount of money, but like, again, I'm focusing on other things right now, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is the value of blue chips in a scenario like this. Some of which are faring better than others, many of which that would have been considered blue chips are doing not well, is there tends to be more liquidity. And that's the thing, that's the other reason to be in blue chips. If you're just much more likely to find a buyer in a scenario like this, even if you're taking a loss. If you need that liquidity, a lot of projects, just you can list them as low as you want. There's nobody trying to buy them right now, and I think that's a learning. And that's the other thing is I think I can kind of put on this hat of like, this is my first crash, and it feels like a rite of passage. I mean, there's been ups and downs, but this one feels really different. And I think it's a rite of passage. I'm kind of trying to look at it that way of like, how can I learn as much as possible from this? I'm really interested in the interaction between crypto markets and NFT markets, and the sort of detachment seemingly between the two, which I think is, they're both crashing at the same time, but the market as a whole, we're entering a recession, inflation is high. Like there's so many factors influencing just a general market downturn. The Luna Terra situation didn't overly seemingly impact NFT markets. And I think that's a really interesting takeaway in all of this. One project I'm keeping my eye on is Flyfish Club. I know you're a holder. As the market's going down, I was starting to think, okay, and your conviction gets higher. It's like, what are projects that I think can really hold their value that maybe right now are being unnecessarily dumped? Flyfish Club came to mind because I'm like, that feels like a Soho house. It has that potential that, high rollers, cool people hanging out. You want access. It's an interesting club. It's a restaurant. I mean, it's a restaurant, but I mean club in the, in the social Soho house sense. I think it actually went down to like 2.3. I was really debating it, didn't, pump back up to 2.9. It's now sitting around 2.7. So it's still above mint price. That's one I think does hold its price well because the utility is very, very clear and it's somewhat transactional in that sense. But with ETH dumping the way it is, I'm like $4K to like get kind of a membership to this New York City restaurant where I live. Like that's interesting. So that's one I'm keeping my eye on. I would potentially go in there during this bear market. But otherwise I'm kind of with you. I'm just like clutching and, continuing to buy ETH and then just holding on and hoping I survive the bleeding on the other end of this. I'm heavily, my biggest bag is definitely like the Gary Vee ecosystem, which I feel pretty good about. Like VF1, VF2, book games. I've got one of his gift goat, like VF minis, which is just done terribly. But in all, that's definitely who I'm like in biggest on. And, I feel stable with that. I hit my long-term caps gain anniversary on my VFriends. I minted VFriends in May of last year. So I'm now officially in long-term capital gains territory with that. I tweeted that out. So, all right. Parting advice for the bear market before we turn to, I guess, Azuki specifically, and then maybe the Luna Terra situation.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say that echoing sort of what you said about trying to view it as a learning experience, no matter how bad and calamitous it was and has been. I know that people have lost basically everything and more. Certain people have, gone into debt and took out loans to, invest into Terra, Luna, and all that kind of stuff, which obviously is not advisable, but we can't change the past. It's happened. Hopefully that anyone going through that right now, is able to just find some way to mentally cope and stay sane and not like it's normal to be sad, depressed, anxious, angry at yourself and at the world and all these sort of things that they're normal, but hopefully people can feel those emotions and take time and heal and learn from it. And yeah, definitely treat it as a learning experience to see what you might do differently in the future. And another thing that I think is something that a lot of people say and feel is that if during this market crash, you're feeling extremely fearful, anxious, it's usually a good sign that you were overexposed and your balance was not, your portfolio was not balanced adequately and appropriately, because it's, I actually wrote this, I think, at some point last year during a bear market, where I was like, when the market was bearish, I was like able to laugh, and I was like, you know, looking at the market and it was going down. I was like, wow, this is crazy. This is wild, amazing. You know, I'll be telling this story in the future when this is happening. And now it's a different situation where I found myself more, you know, skewed towards assets that are crashing and less into stables than I would like. So I'm feeling it more. And then just figuring out how to avoid this situation in the future and learn from it. Yeah.
Yep. I'll echo that. And I'll say, truly, I still feel very bullish and optimistic writ large. Again, individual NFTs, we'll have to see this and that. I don't know where my bags land in that when the dust settles. But I think there's a lot of reason to remain optimistic. This doesn't fundamentally shake my belief in the future we all want at all. And so hopefully you can hold on to some of that conviction as well. And you know, we are going to make it. So bear it all in mind. There's a lot to life beyond the JPEGs. Okay, Azuki. Shit, man. In a shitty week.
You were right.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, I'll only give myself a little bit of credit because Lord knows I would have at various points, if people had given me the opportunity to buy into Azuki at a lower price point, I would have done it. But I did flag. I did think it was. I found it off-putting that we did not know who Zagabond was, that we didn't really seem to be able to verify who the team was, that a project that was just getting that much attention and love and praise to be run by a fully anon team whose track record we just had no sense of, made me nervous. So I'll take the credit there that I did flag that. Should we run through for people what happened?
Yeah.
You want to give the overview?
Yeah, I can give. I haven't been fully in the weeds. I wasn't in the space or anything, but basically,
I listened. I'll give you the rundown.
Yeah, basically everyone knows Azuki. It launched in, I think, December or around then last year, and just skyrocketed from 2 ETH or 1 ETH. I think it sold out at to 30 plus, maybe even 40. No, I think it touched like 35 or something at its peak. And it was just very clearly, a lot of people were calling it a blue chip. I think I might have called it a blue chip and considered it a blue chip just by, 5-6 months in the NFT space is a long time. And for a project to be around and have a really strong community and a high floor price. And to me, again, as sort of a casual, casual outsider looking in, well, not, I own two, or owned, I've sold them now, but as someone who's like part of the community, but not like in the Discord all the time and just not following it closely, it seemed to me like the team was executing on things. Like they had a great event at NFT LA, a great live event. They did something cool with the Bobu NFT and, fractionalized it and had people vote on things that the IP was going to do. And, basic storytelling, stuff like that, it seemed like they were executing well. And then basically what happened was, I think 5 days ago or something now, Zagabond, who is the founder or project head or one of the founders, one of the most, maybe the main team member that everyone's aware of, came out with a Twitter thread basically saying that he was behind 3 previous projects, the Crypto Funks, which are the punks that are flipped, the Crypto Zunks, which is another, are they flipped upside? I don't even know what they are. Maybe they flipped back. And then Tendies.
They play with on-chain, like generative and composability. Yes, Tendies is the third.
Yeah. And basically everyone looked at those projects as like various definitions of rug pull. And, everyone has a different definition of what it is. And Zagabond's sort of quote-unquote defense, from what I can gather, is that he didn't promise the world and he used them as learning experiences and now he's launched this project and the past shouldn't necessarily reflect on this one, but a lot of people who were more connected to Crypto Funks and Zunks and stuff said no, it's pretty clearly that he just extracted value from the community and did things that were shady and no one now appreciates, and he's only coming out with this now because someone else had found out the information and threatened him with it and all sorts of stuff that basically opened this massive can of worms, and the entire space has been sort of figuring out, what do we do now? Where does the value of Azuki lie? Is it in the team? Is it in the community? Is it in the art? Is it in the roadmap? Do we want them to continue running it and supporting them? Do we want a community takeover? Do we want, different leader? All sorts of questions like that. And the floor price has gone from, I think it was at its peak 30-ish, and then it hovered between 20 to 25 for a long time. And then sort of when this bear market hit plus this news, it crashed and it's sitting around 8 or 9 right now.
Which, that's not a bad crash. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to say a few things. One, I think it's fascinating that he chose to put this post out, because again, this came out because Zagabond himself wrote a very long, essentially Medium mirror article, acknowledging all of this, sort of proud of it, like saying, hey, I've pushed the envelope in all these ways. I've done all these innovative things in the space, and here's what I've learned, and these learnings I've taken into Azuki. I'm fascinated to know, and I don't know what he thought the reaction to it was going to be, because the tenor of the article seems to suggest like he didn't think this was going to crash his project. Now, he said this was an article they were intending to put out for a while. Again, interesting, and they put it out early because they were getting like cyberbullied, and being kind of threatened in some capacity. He did not go into details as to like what he was being threatened with, why that forced his hand in publishing this article earlier. Like, there's a lot of swirly questions around that, which I think is at the heart of this, is like his defense, which was done primarily on a Twitter Spaces with Andrew Wang. It just didn't feel fully forthcoming, which is part of the problem, right? There was a lack of accountability, and there was a lack of forthcomingness, where you're being vaguely cyberbullied and threatened, and so you post an article that you were planning on posting anyways, like, talking about all these projects, but seeming to proudly talk about them. So that's, I think, interesting. I want to get your thoughts on, if you have thoughts on where you fall in this. Zagabond is the same as Cole Therium versus, he was a builder who experimented a few times and now has found a fit. Do you have a perspective on that? As
in, like, literally the same human, or just like similar?
Oh, no. It's hilarious that in this space you have to ask that.
Right. No, I don't people are like, is Zagabond beanie? Yeah. No,
the theory being, or the accusation being like, what they have done are equivalents. Like Cole with Pudgy Penguins and
Pickles.
Zagabond.
Yeah.
Pickles, Pudgy Penguins.
Yeah. I can see some similarities there. I can definitely see some similarities. Yeah.
I'll give you my perspective, which is maybe there'll be people who won't like it. I don't think they're the same. I think Zagabond is actually a pretty intelligent, talented person. I think Azuki is taking itself much more seriously as a project than Pudgy Penguins did. Pudgy Penguins, quite literally, the founders ran away with the money. I think Azuki is very much reinvesting in this project and is actually committed to building something. Would I buy into this project? I wouldn't come near a 10-foot pole with it. But it's not actually because I think it's the same as some of these other Pixelmon. I would put Pudgy Penguins in there. I actually think there's a certain level of legitimacy. Again, people will hate me for this, to Zagabond's argument that Pudgy Penguins was fully claiming to be a Cool Cats Doodle style PFP project. We're going to have a game. We're going to be IP. They had a New York Times profile about them. CryptoPunks and Tendies were not that, right? And I think it's like, there's a strong distinction to be made there. Now, this person, Zagabond, whoever they are, they're not an idiot. I think they're smart. And that's where this becomes sort of indefensible. Like, you can say all you want, I did what I told the community I would do. And I do think it's fair to make the argument like, hey, this wasn't intended to be a doodle style project or whatever. But you have to know, you have to know that in this space, if you're in this space, people are buying into projects because they expect you to dedicate to it and do everything you can to make it successful, and they're trying to get a return, right? And what for me feels really just so distasteful, and is why I would never want to bet on this person. It is really about, okay, you learned so much from this, and I buy that. Look, and I'll say this too, one more before I get to my punchline here, like one more caveat, which is it's entrepreneurs build and fail things all the time before they hit on the right thing. That's really legitimate. You can found not project, but like in the entrepreneurial space, like you can start a company and it can fail, and you start another company and it fails. You start another company and it succeeds, and you learn so much from those two failures. The difference is you weren't playing with retailers' money. And you have to know in this space, like if we're funding your fucking education, if you want to argue that, basically the community funded your MBA so that now you can have the success with Azukis, you should be bringing those communities along, right? Like they should have gotten Azuki airdrops. Like if you're going to kind of climb people's heads to the ladder of now your success, there needs to be way more contrition, apology, and rectification going on for those communities. And it shouldn't even have to get to rectification, right? You should have brought those communities along from day one because you're beholden to them, and you know that because you're in this space and you're not an idiot. So I think there's a real just degree of just selfishness there and self-absorption that is really, really distasteful. I do not think, however, this person is on the scale of like, I think they're actually smart and talented, and I think they may build something interesting with Azuki. Is it worth 9 ETH? I don't know, but I wouldn't trust this person. But that's really where I've fallen on it, which I think is maybe a sort of in-between perspective of the different ones you're hearing. I think you see people who are like really defending Zagabond. I've seen a couple of people who are like all in his corner. And then there's people who, of course, just absolutely despise him. And I think there's a middle ground here that I see. But that's really my take.
Yeah, no, I think I largely agree with that now that you've gone through it all. Clearly he is talented and the team is talented. Like you can't, if it was easy to create an Azuki style project, a lot of other people would have done it. It's not easy. It requires a certain something magic, and skill and talent, and also lightning in a bottle and right timing and right market and all that kind of stuff. I do think that if he tried to bring along the previous communities, Azuki wouldn't just never have gotten off the ground. I think it just would have been, dead in the water. Like no one would have supported him knowing he's launched these communities and like trying to now Dutch auction at 2.5 ETH going down to 1 or whatever it was, 1 ETH going down. Like it's just trying to raise so much money. No one would have funded the initial thing. I would just,
You're absolutely right.
I'm really reluctant to support the project. Based on just like the parts that I know, but if I were to sort of do more research and want to, so I had 2 Azuki, I sold them yesterday, probably at the bottom for like 8 ETH, or close to the bottom. But I think that I would want to know who the team is. I want them to dox. I want to know what they've done with the money they've raised, what they're doing with ongoing money, what their plans are, and just more transparency and accountability. Until that happens, or for the project to be turned over to like new leaders. Maybe Zagabond steps down and we know who the new leaders are, but I still want to know what happened to the money and what they're going to do and what they're building. And just, as it stands, I, like you said, don't really want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. That's why I sold. It's really interesting that this is happening when the whole market is crashing as well, because it's just like it's hard to find what's correlated and what's not, and
I want to take what you said there and kind of split the difference for me, which is like, again, if you want to put kind of morality and aside, I'm totally with you. There needs to be tremendously more transparency from the team, and that's again this like you messed up on this scale and you're not being wildly forthcoming, and that reeks of there's more to be cynical about here, right? Like, where's the money from the previous projects? A lot of ETH was made on some of these previous projects, and he essentially copped to like, I don't think it's wrong to make money on a project as a found, there's middle ground here that I can understand, but there is just a complete lack of transparency now about who the rest of the team is, and where funds are going that I think we need. I actually wouldn't necessarily like them stepping down, and I'm not going to buy this project anyways, but this current leadership team stepping down and handing it over to somebody else wouldn't actually make me want the project more, from the standpoint that, like, again, I actually think these are very talented people, right? And it's funny because I went back, I was combing through the Azuki website again yesterday. I'm like, damn, this is good. And I'd even said when Azuki's first came out, I was like, I don't know if I would have recognized this as like so special or whatever. And I was looking back at it, I'm like, however many months later we are now, 4 or 5 months later, I'm like, this is good.
Yeah.
Like this team is talented. They have executed. And it's a shame that really kind of moral lapses in judgment have just tainted what is otherwise, I actually do believe, a quite talented and smart team that is different than other project founding teams and is unique. So that's my split the difference of what you just said. Transparency 100%, but the team I think is
absolutely. They
good.
executed really well. Like the whole airdrop that they did, where it was they did it. The reveal was live. They just airdropped it. They didn't have people claim. It was that they changed the art and this long reveal process. It was cool. It was different. It was fun. The market clearly liked it. I loved it. I thought it was well executed. And the contract, that they had an efficient ERC 721A. That was just a brilliant marketing thing. Obviously, they didn't come up with all the innovations in there, but they packaged it together nicely, and so many projects have used it since. So there's clearly talent there.
There is a detail orientation too. Like even if you look at the team members, and you look at their bios, they're all pithy and funny. Like they have created a vibe. That's what I love about Aku, by the way, is I'm like, there's a brand here, right? Like it has that immediate feeling of like, there's a brand that I can either resonate with or not, but like it gives you that feeling, and that's special. I'm not trying to pump the bags of it. I'm like quite literally saying, don't buy this project. But, I think I don't want to reward this team, but I think it's, I want to give my honest opinion about what's going on here. And anyways, buy Aku, because I'm not actually, of course, not financial advice. I'm not telling anyone to buy anything, but Aku similarly gives that feeling of like, there's a vibe, there's a something here. And I absolutely love the team. And I feel very confident that Micah Johnson is a deeply moral human being who is, a good actor in the space.
I'm looking at the Aku floor right now, and I think if I were to be buying things in this market, I would be looking strongly at that.
At Aku. Yeah. I think Micah's just got a very clear vision, which is I find very attractive. And he's very much like, we're moving towards making a film. If you haven't listened to my interview with Micah, go look at it. He's hired a world-class team to do it, ex-Lucasfilm people, to help him develop the story for Aku. And that is the North Star right now. And then by having that North Star, there's all these, fallout pieces of that come from having that North Star that then can feed the community in the meantime, right? And I just that a clear goal, a clear vision, I find that very appealing in a space where there's a lot of like hand waving, here's what we are, and the community will help us decide, and like, and some of that can be beautiful and great, and I think some of that will find some success for sure.
Living a bankless life requires taking control over your own private keys. And that's why so many in the Bankless Nation already have their Ledger hardware wallet. And brand new to the Ledger lineup of hardware wallets is the Ledger Nano S Plus, a huge upgrade to the world's most popular hardware wallet. With more memory and a larger screen, the Nano S Plus makes it easy to navigate and verify your transactions. And the paired Ledger Live desktop app gives you increased transparency as to what is about to happen with your NFT. What you see is what you sign. The Nano S Plus gives you the smoothest possible user experience while you're doing all of your crypto things. So go to the Ledger website to check out the features of the new Ledger Nano S Plus and join the waitlist to get yours. And don't forget about the Crypto Life card, also powered by Ledger. The CL card is a crypto debit card that hooks right into the Ledger Live app, right next to all the DeFi apps and services that you're already used to doing, like swapping tokens and staking. So if you don't have a Ledger hardware wallet, go to ledger.com, grab a Ledger, and take control over your crypto. RARIBLE is the NFT platform that's leading the charge into the multi-chain universe ahead of us. Available on Flow, Tezos, Polygon, and of course Ethereum, RARIBLE is the perfect place for NFT newcomers, profile picture collectors, and experienced NFT traders. RARIBLE has a variety of NFT features that set it apart from other NFT marketplaces. They have a native messaging function allowing you to DM your friends or haggle with sellers. They also have a mobile app on iOS and Android with a built-in NFT portfolio tracker tool, so you can easily check the value of your digital art portfolio. RARIBLE is built on the RARIBLE protocol, a multi-purpose, open source, and community-governed NFT protocol that helps build products and services across the NFT ecosystem, including white label marketplaces tailored to specific NFT communities. So go to rarible.com and start discovering and trading NFTs, putting in floor bids to join PFP communities, and DM with some brand new internet friends.
Okay. Terra Luna UST. I'm of a mixed mind how much we want to get into this. I think this is not a DeFi podcast. Bankless put out an awesome overview of what happened here. I'll link to it. We'll link to it. I would strongly recommend folks go check that out. They really break down what went on. I guess, because there are folks who do listen to this, and it did just have such a reverberation in the crypto markets. It's worth giving the high level of what went on here and maybe talking about how we think this impacts just the Web3 space in general moving forward. Do you want to give the breakdown here of?
Yeah, I'll have an
happened?
attempt at it. I don't know I'm not sophisticated enough basically to know the intricacies of how the ecosystem Terra worked, but basically Terra, Luna, I think Terra was the ecosystem and Luna was the coin, if I'm getting it right.
Yes. Terra is the blockchain, right? Terra is essentially an Ethereum. It's a layer 1 blockchain, and Luna is the ETH equivalent to ETH to Ethereum is Luna to Terra.
Yeah. And their claim to fame and glory was that they promised they had a stable coin, an algorithmic stable coin, which is, again, I'm not an expert, but my understanding is that there are different types of stable coins. You have ones like USDC, where every dollar is literally backed by a US dollar sitting in a bank or sitting in a AAA plus class asset class, and that's great. Your money is safe. Versus these algorithmic stable coins, where they don't necessarily have the full amount just sitting in reserves, but they come up with interesting DeFi mechanisms to ensure that the value always stays pegged to $1, give or take fractions of a percent. And that's basically what they did. They came up with their own stablecoin, UST, Terra, USD. There's a difference. There's USDT, which is Tether, and then there's UST, which is Terra US dollars. And a lot of people have been getting them confused, but they're very, very different. They are both stablecoins.
Tether has had controversy in the past because it's a stable coin on the order of USDC, which means it's supposed to be backed by stable reserves. And it was backed by not just dollars, right? It was backed by a whole bunch of different assets, including Chinese commercial paper, which is kind of like corporate bonds in China that were tanking. And so Tether is also not something I'd recommend really hopping into. But yes, good, important to distinguish between the two.
Actually, today as well, I woke up and Tether was at, I think, 90 cents. And I was like, because if Tether goes down, we haven't seen anything yet. That's calamitous. That's truly calamitous for the market. It's the third highest coin by market cap. It goes Bitcoin, Ethereum, Tether. So, but thankfully it regained peg. But you were right. There's been a lot of controversy and skepticism about Tether because they don't have US dollars sitting in a bank. They have treasury bonds and CDs and all sorts of other things. But anyway, back to UST. This was a stable coin that the Luna... sorry, I keep getting confused. The Terra ecosystem came up with, and it is basically backed, the idea was, hey, we are going to offer you a 20% APR on your stablecoins. Just deposit it into a staking pool on Anchor, which is a DeFi protocol, and you'll receive 20% returns. And people were amazed by this. It's stable coins. Imagine if you can just go to get 20% interest at your bank. It's amazing, right? So a lot of people bought into that, and they had some interesting, again, mechanism where the price of Luna, which is their other coin for the ecosystem, was they could sell or burn Luna to repeg the UST, or maybe it's the opposite, where they issue more Luna and sell that to repeg. Anyway, eventually, basically, it was a Ponzi scheme that came crashing down. 20% APR on a stable coin is just not really possible, sustainable, or actually, no one's figured out a way to make it sustainable. It probably never is. If it's too good to be true, it usually is. And just a general rule for investing in anything in life is the higher the returns, the higher the risk. No, high risk, high reward is a common saying. You see something with 100% APR, it's you're knowingly taking a bigger risk on that because there's a chance it'll go to zero. Same with 20% for stablecoins. Compared to I think for USDC and Tether, you're getting maybe 5-6%, which is still really good compared to dollars in the bank.
When I first joined DeFi, call it the beginning of last year, you could get up to 12%, I think, on USDC, on Celsius and some of these wallets. It's gone down obviously since then, but Yeah, so there was an interesting dynamic at play, which was that because the stablecoin wasn't backed by something, so you could have scenarios where there were market price fluctuations on decentralized exchanges and things, but the idea was within the Terra ecosystem, one UST was always worth like $1 for Luna. So if Luna was priced at $85, if you had 85 UST, you can always exchange those 85 UST for one Luna, even if the price of UST on a decentralized exchange had dropped to, say, 90 cents. So that's what would help create arbitrage opportunities that would also help keep the value to $1, because people would say, oh, I can get Luna, for cheaper UST and, all that. So that was a part of what was going on here, and part of why, Luna completely crashed when the Terra peg broke and it was no longer pegged to $1. And you basically had an actor. There's a debate right now whether or not there was like a malicious actor or, this was just a trade going on, because you had somebody basically dumping tons and tons of UST into the system, and the Luna Foundation Guard, LFG, right?
Yeah.
Right, which is there to help, maintain the peg, spent billions of dollars, liquidated billions of, like $1 billion worth of Bitcoin trying to buy UST and keep the peg propped up. And ultimately couldn't do it. And there was essentially a run on the ecosystem. And that's, of course, you see that then being part of what's driving down the rest of the market, because you had somebody who was dumping $1 billion worth of Bitcoin into an already bear market. And that, of course, drives it down. But the one thing I wanted to flag, the piece of color, and this comes out in the piece Bankless did, but Do Kwon, who's the, I guess, founder essentially of Terra and this ecosystem, and has very much been the front-facing person, the spokesperson of it, was on a team of a project called Basis Cash, which was another algorithmic stablecoin that had been launched and also basically collapsed, and he abandoned the project. And it was making me think of the Azuki system being totally separate, but it's, once again, you have somebody who experiments, it fails, ups and leaves, and that really saying something about a person who's sort of willing to use a community as their testing ground and probably enrich themselves tremendously, really without seemingly a whole lot of, again, contrition, remorse, understanding of how that impacts other people. And that's a type of person you see a lot in this ecosystem. And for whatever it's worth, that worth some reflection there, I think, on those similarities, even though these are two very different situations in some ways.
I think it's almost something that you see even outside of Web3 and crypto, where like a lot of the top CEOs, I think they say that like 1 in 4 CEOs is a psychopath or something, sociopath, compared to like 1 in 100 or whatever of humanity, something like that. They have these tendencies to be more cutthroat, more like to step on other people to get to the top, which is, that's capitalism. That's part of the world we live in. It's not ideal, but this is a much longer debate on a different topic. But yeah, we definitely see it in a lot of places. And sadly, when that happens in crypto and Web3, it can hurt retail investors a lot more than in Web2 in the traditional world. A, because there's no regulation and there are no safety nets. And that's, again, double-edged sword of crypto and this whole decentralized nature. B, as well, there's a lot of people who can be truly anonymous, and C, a lot of people just have no idea what they're doing, like even more so than in trading stocks and stuff. It's like this is so new and so experimental that algorithmically backed stablecoins, a lot of smart people thought, and maybe probably still do think, that they can work. Like if you can find out a mechanism where, like you mentioned, there's arbitrage opportunities that ensure that, the price will always stay close to $1, because if it deviates, then some smart people will run bots and get it back to that price. But yeah, I'm not sure we've seen an algorithmic stablecoin work yet, and maybe we never will now. Maybe people will stop trying. Maybe it'll be like the DAO, the big DAO hack in Ethereum in 2017, I think it was, or 16 or something. Anyway, where people just didn't touch DAOs for a long time after that, really. And then now they're coming back into vogue. So maybe... Anyway, I
think there's nothing new under the sun. This stuff all comes back under different names. I'm not well versed in call it monetary policy IRL, but you've seen scenarios like this. You have this happen in at federal, it's like country levels where countries will purchase assets of other currencies or gold or whatever to shore up reserves. And you know, there's, this is nothing completely new and I'm sure it'll come back again under another name. And of course, I think on a big picture level, as we look here, it's brought the attention of regulators. You had Janet Yellen come out and say, hey, we need more regulation here. I think the concern, of course, is for me, right, it's not that I disagree. I understand the urge to protect retailers who are the ones who always end up getting screwed worse in these situations. The institutions that are tracking this every minute of every hour are able to get out before it's too bloody for them. And then it's the individual retailer who like wasn't tracking it every minute of the day who ends up holding the bag. So protecting those folks, I think, is a really worthy cause. The concern, of course, is that regulators really don't understand this well enough to regulate it sensibly, and you know, don't necessarily understand the difference between a UST and a USDC and between different blockchains, and you know, that there's just a level of technical sophistication there that I don't think any of us think our regulators have, and that's concerning. Okay, I want to flag Raoul Paul had a tweet thread. Raoul Paul is a macroeconomist who investor really. So he's been on Bankless a bunch. He's a little bit more DeFi side, but he's very the digital asset class space is fascinating, and he's got a fund and he makes a ton of investments. I think he's really smart. You know, I love the way he articulates things. He's fun to listen to because he's one of those people who paints a picture and you're like, yes, that is the future, you know? But he comes from the let's call it legitimate world of investing, macro investing. And he was very early on the Bitcoin train that caught a lot of ire from his contemporaries because he was on it before people really, in 2012, 2013. So he was very long Bitcoin for a little while. And then maybe a couple years ago, I don't know exactly what the timeline is, he sort of switched. He still likes Bitcoin, but really got on the ETH train. And then again, the Bitcoin maximalists who had adopted him as oh my God, he's our legitimizing force because he comes from the legitimate investing world and he loves Bitcoin. Then they were all mad that he was then an Ethereum person. All the Bitcoin maxis came for him. And I mean, look, he went on Bankless at the end of last year and said there was going to be a huge ETH run up. He could see ETH at 10K or more or whatever, right in Q4, which didn't happen. So look, he's a macro picture strategist guy. So when it comes to the micro and his immediate prediction of what's going to happen this quarter, he does not always get it right. Yeah. But I respect him because he's willing to really put bold opinions out there, and he justifies them in the way he does, and then you can decide if you agree with his logic or not. He does Real Vision. If you've ever seen, he has it's sort of a financial education media company called Real Vision, and he has Real Vision Crypto. And okay, that's Raoul Paul. I respect him. I think he's interesting, and so he wrote a thread giving his macro views. He talks about the equity markets and the bond markets, saying the equity markets have priced in a lot of the headwinds we're facing in terms of rate raises and blah, blah, blah. But then I wanted to focus in on the crypto piece. He said, he talks about all the different markets, commodity markets, et cetera. And then he says, crypto is in full panic mode. All the monkeys are flinging poo at each other or at me on Twitter. And that is a sign of approaching the lows. March 2020 was very similar in levels of fear, anger, vitriol, shock, and panic. June 2021 was less. But as I have pointed out time and time again, crypto is a long-term investment for me, not a trade. In the thesis is clear expectations of 60% corrections, which I've discussed at length. Without that kind of volatility, you don't get the exponential upside. If you zoom out from the FUD, you get BTC as a proxy for the space overall, heading back to its long-term exponential moving average. Tough times like these are the times to buy if you have any spare cash. Not easy these days. And sentiment is so bad that just by writing this tweet of my thoughts in order to help people, my comment section will be full of personal attacks, vitriol, and anger. I'm sorry you feel that way. Bear markets and recessions are hard and are scary, but they give huge opportunities. Keep calm and carry on. Stick to your framework. Relentlessly test your hypotheses and keep an open mind. Blah, blah, blah. Opportunity comes out of a crisis. I think that's a very, love it. Fully agree, sober-minded, on point, and has the optimism in there, right? You're not going to have the exponential growth without clearing out a lot of, overhyped, crappy projects, even projects that aren't crappy, but that just can't sustain. We couldn't sustain the levels we were at, and we all knew it. We all knew it. It was just a game of chicken of like, when is it going to happen? How many bags are you going to be holding when it came crashing down?
Yeah. No,
okay, let's talk about some optimism and some things that I think, it feels a little bit like we're in this crisis mode, but projects are still building, right? The world keeps ticking. This is an ecosystem that is not going anywhere. And I really wanted to flag just the projects that are going about their day to day and continuing to do what they do, because the world is not in fact ending. And there's a really beautiful future for this world. You wanted to flag, I loved this. You wanted to flag the Angel Labs tweet.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us about this?
Yeah. So I'm assuming most people know about Angel Labs. You had the founders on I think a few weeks ago or a month ago. But basically it's this incubator program out of Meta Angels, and they're sort of trying to find people and projects that are trying to launch an NFT or Web3 project and looking for some sort of assistance in the form of like coaching, mentorship, a general accelerator type thing. And I think they had almost 300 applicants, which is amazing. And they announced that the 16 that they selected yesterday. And there's this big Twitter thread where they go, like each tweet is the project and a blurb about them. And just reading through it, it's just like you get to see just how many people there are out there trying to build really cool, interesting, projects and products that are going to help the world. Like, let's see. We All Grow Latina is an 18,000 member community of Latina creators, makers, and entrepreneurs who support, uplift each other. Amigahood, their expansion into Web3, onboards members through education and representations of the cultural intricacies of Latinidad. Democra DAO is an experienced team of democracy organizers launching Web3 solutions that advance political and policy and political causes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They've really found a really diverse group of projects. And I mean, there's, how do you say this? Potley Night Market brings community product development and loyalty programs and crowdfunding to CBD-enhanced pantry and snack items. And it's just cool seeing and hearing about the different projects out there that are building in this space. And this is like, this is 16 out of the 297 that they mentioned. There's thousands out there of other people, other companies that are trying to launch into this space. Big Web2 companies and brands, little Web2 companies and brands bridging and trying to figure out NFTs and Web3 and crypto. And like, if this isn't proof that there's something here and this is not going anywhere, I don't know what is. It's impossible to be bearish long term when you see the people that are really building stuff and the types of things that they're building that are honestly in many ways only possible due to Web3 and the NFT stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the other projects that, news, I guess, this week that I wanted to flag was Kith and Invisible Friends officially announced their partnership. We've talked about this in the podcast before because I just fell in love with this as a partnership. I think Kith is an amazing brand. Ronnie Feig, who's the founder of Kith, I think is an incredibly savvy operator. He's been very savvy about the way he moves the Kith brand forward. I tuned into a Twitter Spaces that Invisible Friends and Kith did, talking about this partnership. Invisible Friends is another one. They have a cool look, feel, vibe. They're unique. You can tell the brand. And Ronnie was like, I loved it for Kith because it's an invisible person, the focus really is on the clothes. So as a clothing brand and a streetwear brand, they're basically rolling out, I guess, their spring, summer, fall, I don't know, one of their collections, on these invisible friend characters. So you're going to see the new Kith collection on these invisible people. And that's creative and interesting. And I think as the younger generation gets older and has more disposable income, this super, super digitally native generation, that's the kind of stuff that's going to hit and that all brands are going to have to start experimenting with is, those kinds of partnerships. And again, it just makes me long-term bullish for NFTs and the future of all of this is we are just, the world is becoming more digitally integrated and brands are going to need to become more digitally integrated. And I really like these two projects. I think they share values. I think they're both savvy. I think they're both interesting. I think they're true creatives and artists. And I like to see these true creative and artists partnering up and then I think thriving. So, love that. Love the Kith Invisible Friends partnership. There's also Kinship, which is the Bored Ape music group. comprised of Jimmy's bored apes and a mutant ape. Have you been tracking the kinship stories?
I remember when
Zeneca?
they announced it, maybe like 5-6 months ago now. It sounded incredible and amazing, and so now they've got a product or a mint.
They're doing their first NFT drop, which so there's an element of like, oh no, more money to be spent.
Yeah.
I did sign up for the allow list. I have an Avastar, which got me, which meant I was eligible to, sign up for their pre-mint allow list. It's cool, right? So this is UMG, Universal Music Group, which is just the biggest music group. It backs, within it's the UMG umbrella is like Def Jam Records, which is huge. It's got EMI, which is, tons of artists that you would recognize. Elton John, like EMI's in like, a UK based record label. So most of like the big UK artists come out of EMI. They have like Abbey Road Studios. Like they're just the number of like studios and, kind of entities that are under UMG is massive. And one of the new, I guess, labels that's under the broader UMG umbrella, or it's a joint venture with UMG, is 1022. It's founded by this woman, Celine Joshua. She's been in the industry for many, many years. And 1022, so I'll read this little quote here from Celine. I started 10:22 p.m. to push the boundaries of innovation in the music industry, and with Kinship, we are literally inventing what's possible in real time. Just as we would with any artist or creator, my team and I will work with Kinship to sharpen their vision and develop their unique sound. Each member of the group has their own story and personality that influences and contributes to Kinship's overall narrative. And so what you're seeing, this is a virtual music group. They're going to have stories. They're going to have personalities. Again, it feels a little anathema to me to get attached to like a, digital music group. I think it feels way less anathema to the generation that's coming up behind us. The other thing is, you're talking about stories, right? You're going to have a story about this group that can be as engaging as a movie, but you have this extra element of it's sort of like, they're a band and there's going to be songs and maybe you like them and maybe you don't. Like, I just think it's interesting. And I think we will see more of this kind of thing moving forward. It's interesting to me in the way that Coinbase casting Bored Apes in their trilogy is interesting, where like we all can be now stage moms, but instead of taking that out on our actual children, we can just like make our NFTs, we can go put them out into the world to make us money in movies or music groups or whatever.
Yeah.
It lights up my imagination. I don't know where it'll all go, but that's what I appreciate about this space. And it's that reminder that when things are dark, like if your imagination is being lit up the way this space can light it up, like we're all going to make it.
Yeah. It's, inspirational, motivating to see people like pushing the needle and trying new things and exploring what's possible with the technology. And it's different. It's exciting. It's new. It's maybe in 10 years we'll look back and it'll be common. Like there'll be hundreds, thousands, millions of bands that the characters are not humans, they're NFTs, or maybe some hybrid. Maybe there's AI involved. There probably will be actually. It's
undoubtedly.
It's a whole new world, honestly. Yeah.
And again, I feel a little weird about it.
So do I.
I feel a little bit like I don't want to watch a movie without real actors. I want to go to there's, and so we'll see. But that's where I think it's a little bit about every generation reinvents things that the older generation is like, what? Like why would you do that? I'm trying to keep an open mind to it all. So I think that those Angel Labs, Kingship, Invisible Friends, Doodles is coming out with the Duplicator today.
Yes.
I don't know if we have any more details on that.
Not
Doodles has
too
been pumping.
much. Unfortunate timing for them. I think at any other time in the market.
Hard to feel bad for Doodles, though. I have to say,
it is
like,
true.
I think it's the only NFT project that's like really holding up very well in all of this.
Yeah,
one of the only ones.
One of the only like handful. Invisible Friends too, actually, just to touch back on that, I looked at their floor. They're like 3.5 ETH, which, they were sitting at 6 to 7 for a long time.
7, 6.
So they're down 50%, but like Bored Apes are down 40%. It's like Mutants are down more than 50%. So it's not absurd, given the current market, and they're holding up well. But back to Doodles, I think the Duplicator is the thing that's coming out. I read something about how they've largely been really great at under-promising and over-delivering, and not being... But then it almost seems like I've read a few announcements in the last few weeks where they're like, we're going to blow your minds. It's going to be everything you think and more. If you're expecting it to be like a standard airdrop type thing, It's not mutants. It's so much more, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, either they've just like had a real shift in their marketing strategy and approach for whatever reason. Maybe they made a conscious decision to try and feed into the hype a little bit more in the market, or we're just all going to get our minds absolutely blown. And knowing the team, I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's the latter. And I suspect that it's going to be something brand new that we've not seen before, something cool. Wow. And yeah, any other time in the market, the floor price would be skyrocketing, I imagine. Yeah, again, hard to feel sorry for them, but I'm excited. Honestly, I own Doodles, and I love the art, I love the team, I love the community. It's one of the few remaining safe havens and blue chips out there, especially now that Azuki has done Azuki things. Yeah.
Azuki has done Azuki things. Yeah. I feel like Azuki will become a shorthand for, like something.
They wanted to be famous for their 721A, but maybe they'll become famous for another thing.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how this all plays out. What the Azuki future looks like. Deeply bullish Doodles. I mean, look, it's hard. These bear markets really, they shatter the glasses a little bit, and you start looking at things with a more critical eye. Like, okay, what have they really delivered that warrants whatever the value, whatever however many thousands upon thousands of dollars you'd pay to have one. And that goes back to, and I have spoken about this before, like you can't really know the intrinsic value of NFTs at this point, right? Like the Warren Buffett style of like trading stocks, which is like determine its intrinsic value based on a very like mathematical calculation on profit and earnings and all, you can't do that here. And that's why you have to be aware that there's a very gambly element to everything that's going on here. But the Doodles team, I think, is just cannot be denied in terms of their talent and their work ethic and their experience in the space. And yeah, big fan of the Doodles team.
Excited to see what they do. People still talk about their event at South by Southwest, about how amazing it was in bridging. You were there, right?
I was there. It was very cool.
Yeah. So
again, just like
they can execute.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Zeneca. I think that's the show for today. Stay strong out there, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Overpriced JPEGs. If you liked this conversation, if you liked this episode, please go ahead and hit subscribe. It helps me out, it helps the show out, and it means you will get alerts and updates when we post new content. Thanks again.